welcome everyone to this session on Power Platform Finance with Chris Huntingford. So Power Platform Finance, if you're new to it, it's a community that we've set up for finance and IT professionals. So looking at Power Platform and how it applies in the finance space. So we're looking to look at those finance roles and looking at reporting, modeling, planning, forecasting, and all those kind of areas, and thinking about how you can do those kind of functions and roles using modern tools. So like Power BI and PowerApps, Power Automate, Power Virtual Agents, and how those could apply in that space. And I think it's a really, really big area, really one ripe for automation and use of these tools. So I'm Rishi Satpur, so I'm a principal consultant at Altius Avanade, a Microsoft Data Platform MVP as well, and I'm an accountant by background, so hence this user group, I guess. And I also run along this side, like this community, I run another one called Learn Data Insights, which is all about quizzes and games and courses for kind of learning Power BI and Python and Excel. And then Chris, do you want to do a quick intro?
Hey, yeah.
Hi everyone. Yeah. Oh, there. Yeah. Trying to catch you out, Chris. I'm Chris Barber, and I'm also a chartered accountant and work at Altius alongside Rishi. And Naveen, do you want to say hello?
Hi everybody, my name is Naveen. I am mainly helping out with the Learn Data Insights website together with Rishi, and sometimes also Chris. Great to have you all here. I work at Starling Bank in the Treasury department, mainly working with Python and some of the Power BI stuff. So great to have you here, Chris Huntingford. Thank you everybody.
Cool, great to see you. Yeah, just look at if you haven't been on the website recently, so we've got the recording from the last webinar. So Belinda Allen did a session on Dynamics BC. So we had the first one in this series. So this series of 3 webinars is on Dynamics and Power Platform integration. So we had Julia Simpson, who's on the call now as well, who did one on FinOps. Belinda did one on Dynamics BC, and then Chris Huntingford today is going to do one on Dynamics overall, but I suppose focusing on the kind of that core element of Dynamics, which is the customer engagement side. The recording's there on the website, or if you go to our YouTube channel, you'll see it there as well. If you could please also provide some feedback on the session. I know we haven't reached out to people individually on this, but we do read the feedback, so we do pass them back on to the presenters, and it does help them. So visit that URL. I'll put it in the chat as well. And please let us know what you think of the sessions, and also ideas for what you want to see next. So we're starting to think about a plan for 2021 for Power Platform Finance and the types of sessions we want to do, and we're really thinking about how we can try and get to not just showing off tools and technologies, but how we can get to the roles that people do and the jobs that people do and the tasks they carry out, and how those can actually be applied using this tool set. So really come at it from that angle rather than here's a whole bunch of cool tool and techs that you should learn. So yeah, if you have any ideas and you have any things that you think we could show, please let us know. And up next in 2 weeks' time, so the next series of PPF webinars will be on financial modeling, but not so much from the kind of perspective that we did before with ValQ, PowerOn, BI and Activist, but more looking at some of the DAX ways of doing things and integration with Excel, so looking at Excel financial modeling. So we're starting with Bob Duffy, who's going to be looking at cash flow reporting. So to do cash flow reporting in Power BI, and I know we had Belinda also look at cash flows from a different perspective, but this will look at it more from how do you model some of those cash flow rules in DAX essentially, and create those pro formas, making it dynamic. So it'll be a really, really interesting session. I've seen him present recently at SQL Bits, and I've had a few conversations with Bob recently. He's a great guy and really, really knows his stuff. So yeah, please register for that. You could use this URL or go to powerplatformfinance.com, and it will be under upcoming webinars. So that's in 2 weeks' time. So yeah, please register for that. And I think then now we can hand over to Mr. Huntingford. Chris, all over to you.
Sweet, thanks Rishi. All right, I'm gonna share my screen if that's cool.
Yep.
There we go, cool. Just let me know when you can see that. Cool.
I can see it, yep.
Yep.
Hooray! Thanks, Chris. Chris Barber, by the way, you have a very strong name, just saying.
Thank you.
Awesome. All right, everyone. Thanks for having me. This is all very exciting. I really enjoy presenting to folk that I haven't necessarily presented to before. But what I will say, if you've ever watched a Michael Bay movie when they've got like lots of explosions and special effects, this is not that. This is going to be more Tarantino. So you can figure that one out for yourself. But yeah, I'm not known for my subtlety. Anyway, just that's a heads up. So today I'm going to be talking to you about Power Platform and D365 customer engagement first-party apps. I love this stuff, right? So who am I? Let's get on to the next one. That's me, right? You can catch me at Tattooed CRM Guy on Twitter, but I'm a tech architect working at Microsoft. So basically my role is to work with our partner base. So partners like Avanade and LTS and really create capability and capacity in the Power Platform. So if you want to hit me up on Twitter, go right ahead. More than welcome to, and I do follow back and I do respond. So yeah. Right, so today, what I'm hoping for is that if you could just chuck your questions in the chat for the very beginning, what I'll do is I'll bake the answers to the questions that I have directly into the presentation. And yeah, if you've got any licensing questions, chuck them in as well. You might not like the answer, but I will tell you my opinion. And I have a licensing slide just to let you know. So I'm very excited to show that off. And yeah, it was my birthday on the 27th. So I'm recovering from the hangover today. Cool. So these sessions are recorded, right? Just to let you know. Right. So I want to bring up this slide. So this is one of the slides that folks like Charles Lamana and James Phillips and everyone bring up when they're talking about Power Platform. The reason this slide is important is because people continuously mention the word apps. All right. So you can see that 500 million new apps will be built in the next 5 years. And the demand for mobile apps is growing 5 times faster. And 65% of enterprise application development will be done in low-code, no-code by 2024. Now, you're probably saying, well, Chris, on 16.5% of stats made up on the spot? Well, no, they aren't. These are backed by some big partners like Gartner and Forrester. And there's also quite a smart dude in our organization called Satya Nadella, and he made the first point about the 500 million new apps, which is pretty awesome. And thanks for the birthday wishes, by the way. So I want to say I don't want to talk about apps, right? I want to talk about solutions. And the reason I want to talk about solutions is because you're never just delivering an app. Never works that way, okay? When people say I'm going to deliver an app, what a lot of people translate that to is a Canvas app in Power Platform, and I will break down what that is. That's not what we're doing here, okay? We're gonna do something much bigger than that, which is quite exciting actually, because you're going to start seeing the breadth of functionality coming out. All of you on the call who love a good bit of Azure, right, and like to get down with your nerdy self, you're going to enjoy some of this. Also, folks that are more functional, great, that's awesome. This is for you as well. Now, one of the other things that we always talk about is this concept of monthly active developers. Now, I wouldn't be able to get through a Microsoft presentation without whipping out a Gartner or a Forrester chart. So here they are. But here's the thing. When you start looking at those monthly active developers, they are not people that are physically writing code every time. They are people that are creating things using the Power Platform, which is pretty cool. So I'm a Lego developer, and hopefully you can see my video feed. My Lego developer is, I built this thing. I don't know what it is. It's a spacecraft. I ripped one apart recently and stuck it back together. And if you're ever on a phone call with me and you see me like tinkering with stuff, I'm probably playing with Lego. So when you look at it from that aspect, right? A lot of the time, the Microsoft sort of solution landscape or application landscape, as people call it, can be quite confusing, right? There is a lot in there. There is a lot under the hood. When you actually open that up, you're just going to find stuff and loads of stuff, which is exciting. I mean, when I looked at when I started learning business applications, there were 3 apps. Well, not even apps. It was one solution, sales, service, and marketing. That was called CRM, customer relationship management. It's so much bigger than that now, which is really very exciting. But when you take a look at this and then you compare this to an actual sort of organization, it's quite similar, right? There's lots of things all over the place that we have to account for. And it can be quite scary because often we're missing things. We don't understand where everything is. And, depending on the different, so you're very financial services focused or finance focused. And you'll find that, you'll find commonalities. I mean, we were talking about data earlier. That's such an important thing. In fact, data is the most important thing in the platform, but we'll get to that shortly, right? So when you think about organizations today, this is kind of what it looks like. So what we did at Microsoft is we were like, you know what we're going to do? We're going to put this stuff into boxes. Yeah, That's what we're going to do. Compartmentalize things. That's what everyone does, right? We're going to compartmentalize stuff. So what we did was we said all the real techie, nerdy stuff we're going to call Azure, and we're going to put it like into a thing called Azure, and that's where everything's going to be built on, and that's going to be the platform layer, right? And then we're going to take M365. A lot of your personal productivity and your organization productivity solutions live in Microsoft 365. So we put it in that box, and then anything business focused, business applications like customer relationship management and all that type of thing, then we put it into the BizApps box, yeah? And when you draw, so you're all on this call will come from different worlds. You also might hear the saying that Microsoft say, well, some people at Microsoft say we have 3 clouds. That's junk. We don't have 3 clouds. We have 1 cloud. It's the Microsoft cloud, okay? We're competing against Google and Amazon. We have 1 cloud, all right? So if you ever hear that, stick up your hand and say we have 1 cloud, actually, not 3. And that's just a language thing, right? So to get that out the way. But if I drill into the BizApps box, right, this is something that you're going to find. Now, I like this slide because it's pretty ugly, and I build ugly slides, so I didn't build it, but it has color, and it actually breaks down what business applications really looks like into really, really great layers. So Jules would have spoken to you about the ERP solutions layer, where you've got your finance and your supply chain management and project operations, and then you had another presentation on Business Central. Now that's cool because that helps you with that's basically your ERP side. So effectively, when you're looking at those solutions, right, there'll be a combination of applications and automations and data storage and blah, blah, blah. There's tons. The layer underneath that is effectively your customer relationship management or customer engagement applications. And that's typically sales, service, marketing, and field services, right? Now that's pretty cool because that CRM layer is what we're going to be talking about today. And there's a ton of other stuff in there. We've got all sorts of things like customer data platform with customer insights. We've got fraud protection. We've got loads and loads and loads, right? But the CRM solutions are where we're going to focus our efforts today. The other layer we're going to focus our efforts on is that bottom layer at the bottom, the power layer. Now, I'm not convinced that I want to call it that because it sounds incredibly cheesy, but the power layer, power platform layer, there we go, much better, contains your power platform components. Now, effectively, when you start looking at the power platform, what we needed to do at Microsoft was we needed to find a way to bring those 3 service areas together in a great way that people could understand, but also we wanted to make sure that we could functionally create solutions from those various areas. So you know what we did? We created this thing. We created the Power Platform. Now, a lot of you will have heard this. A lot of you hear it all over the place. The Power Platform is a consolidation of functionality from those 3 service areas. So I'm probably going to get a bit cheeky in this part, and my BI friends are going to laugh at me, but effectively Yellow Excel, or Power BI, comes from the Office world, right? Now, it's a much bigger tool than you even think. PowerApps comes from SharePoint and business applications within Dynamics. You've got Power Automate flows. We didn't call it Power Flow because that was taken by a hydraulics company, I think. But Power Automate contains Flow, which is effectively a logic app. It's just served up in a more palatable format. You've got UI flows and business process flows. Business process flows come from Dynamics, right? UI flows are effectively built on top of Azure. And then finally, one of the last ones, which is Power Virtual Agents. I still think they should have called this Power Bots. It just sounds so cool, right? So Power Virtual Agents, PVA, that's effectively the bot framework just served up in a more palatable fashion as well, right? That's not the piece I'm concerned with, okay? For all I care, there could be another 50 little colorful balls in there and that make up the layers of the utilization piece of the platform. The part I'm concerned about and the part that I'm very interested in is the piece underneath, and that's the data bit. Oh, this is where it gets very chunky, folks, because data is the thing that matters here. Now, when you start looking at this process, okay, the data connectors are really important because what they do is they enable you to touch data, okay? That is it. So Jules has put in the comments, data makes the world go round. Spot on. So when I used to work in BizApps, right, and I still kind of do, I used to go to customers and they'll say, hey, we have Salesforce. And I'm like, no, you got to get rid of Salesforce. Now I'm like, sweet, give me your data. I'll sort it out for you, right? So what we do is I go and connect to their data. I can build up Power Automate flows. I can whack in a couple of virtual agents there. I can, rig that up and analyze the data with Power BI. But then they start saying to me, listen, Chris, it's all very well, but we're starting to look at building other solutions. And I'm like, cool, man. We've got this thing called the Common Data Service. And the Common Data Service actually is a consolidation of elements within Azure served up in a services layer that's easy for you to understand. No, it's not access in the cloud. It is far bigger than that, and I'll show you what it looks like under the hood. And we've also got AI Builder. One of the things I want to tell you is that those customer engagement apps, right? We talk about sales, service, marketing, and field services. Those are PowerApps, folks. They're just pre-built PowerApps, all right? They're built with the same digital bricks that the Power Platform provides and that you use to build model-driven applications. So they are PowerApps. It's effectively, we've created an ISV out of our own products, an independent software vendor. We've said, you know what? What we're also going to do is, you see how we created these awesome solutions, right? See how we created these awesome solutions. Well, you know what? We're going to give you the tools to build your own. So when I walk into an org and I'll go and they say to me, hey, Chris, we're a facilities management organization. I'll go, oh, that's kick-ass, you know, but facilities management doesn't need sales. You're not going to build it in there. You're probably not, you might use services, but there's no property hierarchy. There is an element of an asset hierarchy in field service and marketing. Well, I'm not going to use marketing at all. So I can build it from scratch myself. Yeah. And that's the cool part, is that when you have that data storage facility in the background, you can use those digital bricks to create those solutions. Now that is really cool. But then when I walk into an organization that says, hey man, I would love you to build out, you know, sales pipeline management, I can go, you know what? Like, I'm not going to spend 5 years building out pipeline management for you. You know what I'll do? Why don't you just buy the sales solution, the sales app? And you can go ahead and pay big, shiny bucket loads of earth money to use the sales app. Now, that's really cool, right? Because what's important to me is that as long as I have the data, I can build anything you want. I can build you anything, literally. You name it, I'll build it, right? If you want me to build you a pink panda bear doing a backflip on a jet ski that allows you to gather data from, I don't know, extraterrestrial squirrels, I'll build it for you in Power Platform. I'll find a way to do it, right? And that's the cool thing about the platform. And in general, that's the cool thing about the Microsoft stack. You can build anything, right? So when I start thinking a little bit deeper now about just those 4 little bubbles, right? Take a look at this slide. So James Phillips loves this slide. He loves the digital feedback loop, and I'm not gonna present that to you. Don't you worry. it's an interesting set of information. But I want to present the actual layers to you, and one of the things that's really, really key. And as you can see at the very bottom, data is the core, right? Every single time. PowerApps are a byproduct of data, all right? Power BI is a byproduct of data. We were talking about Power BI earlier. When you open up a Power BI report without data, it looks pretty damn stupid. Yeah, I think we can all agree that without supercharging your information with your data, without supercharging your reports with data, it kind of doesn't make much sense. Which brings me to my next part of the discussion, right? And where we get into how to build, where we start looking at how to build these things. Effectively, when you're looking at the way the Power Platform works, all right, you can store data anywhere you want. We don't care. In fact, we'd love you to put data in the common data service, because that is effectively what we define as the most secure and logical place to put information. It is a little expensive, don't worry. Here's the thing. If you don't want to use the CDS and you're super techie, go and use SQL, right? But here's the thing. You'll be spending maybe, I don't know, X8 the amount of time building out that SQL structure. In the CDS, I can build it in less than a day, okay? SharePoint lists are awesome. They're really great for that sort of beginning app dev approach. But what we found is that there is often scalability issues. So you don't want to potentially use a SharePoint list as a business critical solution. You'll start finding anomalies, right? And there's also, you got the concept of Project Oakdale. Now I'm not going to get into this because I want to focus on the first party apps. But Oakdale is effectively Microsoft's answer to that sort of process where you're having these mission critical solutions, but you need a more reliable data storage facility than SharePoint, right? So Oakdale's in there, it's seeded with Office. And actually, Fernando's made a good point. You can insert good old Power Query there too. See, here's the thing. Power Query is basically embedded within the common data service, right? So that's how you build out data flows. It's really cool. There's a built-in integration facility as well using Power Query. So yeah, man, it's everywhere. So now the common data is really the base for all first-party applications, customer engagement applications. Now, it's important that you guys understand this. So if I get a bit more nerdy, prepare yourselves, put in your crash helmets, because this is going to get bumpy. So the common data service is primarily an API. Okay, it's primarily the ability to connect to information through this API. When you drill into it, the first thing that you've got is your pro dev as well as low code dev tools. So you can connect through PowerApps, you can connect through Flow, you can connect through Power BI. But then your Pro Code tools, you've also got the ability to leverage, pretty much Visual Studio and anything else you'd like. When you start drilling into the Common Data Service, the reason that this thing is special, okay, is that it has 7 layers of authentication and security, all the way from Azure Active Directory authentication down to field level and data obfuscation. So you have loads of security in here. You can do lots of stuff. It's pretty bonkers. So trying to build that into SQL, that's going to take you some time, right? So the Common Data Service, remember, all first-party apps are built on this. The Common Data Service is the core foundational piece, right? The next thing we have is we've got some delightful logic. So we've got this concept of business rules. Now, workflows shouldn't be on here because all classic workflows are being replaced with Power Automate flows, right? But you've got your logic layer, and you can build plugins, event-based code. So code that runs on specific events directly within the CDS. So those of you that are C# ninjas, there you go. You've got pre-built business rules, which are really cool. You've got the concept of rolling up fields and information and doing addition and things like that. And the next layer, which is pretty important, is the ability to store data. So you can basically store data directly within elements of the Common Data Service. Now, one thing that's pretty important is that when you start looking at the type of data, we've got this thing called the Common Data Model. Now, I have a feeling the Common Data Service will be rebranded, but the Common Data Model is effectively the schema in which the data is kind of mapped against or to. So the Common Data Model comes out, let's think about it like this. If you do finance, right, you'll have a data model specific for finance. You could plug that directly into directly in the Common Data Service, and that's actually really easy to do. The data storage is the one that gets really interesting because everyone thinks that it's just SQL underneath the hood here, but it's not. It's SQL Elastic Pools, it's Azure Blob, it's Cosmos DB. So your data is automatically stored in the right place through the services layer. You build that out manually, and you're going to be spending a long time, right? So it does it automatically for you. And then finally, we've got our integration layer. So there's multiple ways to integrate data to various sources, right? Now we've got our pre-built integration directly within the Common Data Service that allows you to map data between different data structures. So as an example, if you've got an Oracle data storage facility, you can map data in from CDS into Oracle, which is pretty cool, right? But if you want to write code, or you're a bit stronger, you can use things like the Event Hub or Service Bus, whatever you prefer, right? So you can use pretty much anything to do integration. So for the Azure folks out there, just to put your hearts at rest, this is what's under the hood, okay? Very important to know that everything we do at Microsoft is effectively built on Azure. Right, so now that I got the nerdy bit done, let's get into a little bit of some business value stuff. So if all first-party apps are built on the Common Data Service, where does it fit into the glorious landscape of a customer? Well, it's actually not a difficult thing. When you walk into a customer, you got to look at this from a use case perspective. It's never going to be one size fits all. So typically in organizations, you're going to have these kind of 5 layers, right? Personal productivity all the way up to organization-wide initiatives. And certain data storage facilities fit certain little bubbles. Now, here's the thing. When you look at the first-party application layer, the Dynamics 365 first-party application layer, yeah, it was a tough couple of slides. Think about it like this. Think about the fact that if you are buying CRM applications, right, they'll work in any of these scenarios because they're built to have that sort of structural integrity. However, when you start looking at things like your Power Platform layer with your personal and team productivity solutions, you're probably going to find that a lot of those are going to be built in the smaller data storage facilities. So in no way can this over here, oh, sorry, I'm going to quickly move my mouse. There we go. In no way can the way that the solution is built over here map to the way a solution is built over here. You use different data structures, right? So in the first party application layer, you're typically thinking, well, you know what? I can use that anyway. You can go down, but you can't go up. You have to change the solution when you go up the slide. Here you don't, but you might find that your cost benefit analysis decreases because of the fact that you're paying like $95 for a user, but only one person's using it. I mean, it just depends on the business need, right? So your first party applications and your Power Platform solutions will fit into one of these categories. And depending on how important the category is, will depend on what you're willing to pay for it. That's pretty key. So when I look at that, you know, the different data structures, you typically see in Common Data Service and SQL living in these areas here, whereas Sharepoint and Oakdale living here. But remember, I can take these down and put them here. And that's really cool because if I've got 5 people using Dynamics, that's great. But if I've got 5,000 people you putting data into a SharePoint list, I'm going to have some problems, right? So you've got to start thinking about where stuff needs to live. So when I look at the licensing, when I actually look at the cost and start thinking about how this all fits together, well, it's actually pretty simple, right? PowerApps especially, and we're going to use PowerApps as the benchmark here, is licensed quite easily actually. And if you haven't if you've read the licensing guide, awesome, good on you. If you haven't, go and read it, right? Rule number 1 that I have is guide before guidance. Okay, so the 3 types of licensing that you have for the Power Platform, effectively, when you're looking at PowerApps as the benchmark, are number 1, with Office, you've already got PowerApps. You know, it's in there already. You can use standard connectors. You can use those applications to connect out to other data structures. When I say that you're using apps, right? Anything that's not premium, so personal productivity, and that's typically Canvas apps. And I'm going to show you what the differences are between them and model apps. When you look at Dynamics, when you buy Dynamics 365 customer engagement, PowerApps is pretty much included with most licenses. Okay, so you can go ahead and build out PowerApps and flows directly within Dynamics and not pay any extra for them. Okay, when you start looking at the actual PowerApps licensing itself, you're basically paying. If you use a paid for premium license, you're paying to use the business connectors. You're paying to connect to the Common Data Service. You're paying to connect to Salesforce, Oracle. And that's fine, right? Because if it's a business connectivity solution, so if it's something that lives sort of up here, right, you're typically going to be paying to connect. But if it's here, you're probably not. You can do it with an Office. Personal productivity and team productivity, business productivity. The first party Dynamics 365 applications normally live here. You'll have them living here at some point, depending, but they normally live in this layer here, right? So the licensing, think about it like this. If you're using business applications, you got to pay. Nothing's free. I like that licensing gift. That's such a that gift is so appropriate for it, right? So with Dynamics, you basically get the licensing with Power Platform, okay? But if you're not, you got to pay for it. That's basically how it is. And don't see the licensing as like a per app thing, seeing it as a data connectivity thing. I'm using premium connectors, I've got to pay money. I'm not using premium connectors, okay, I'm seated with Office. It's that simple, literally, okay? So when do you position the Power Platform and when do you position Dynamics 365 customer engagement? Well, it's pretty straightforward, and I said it to you in the beginning. In the beginning, if a customer says to you, hey, I'm looking for a sales solution, I'm looking for a marketing solution, no problem, right? All you got to do is simply position Dynamics 365 customer engagement. They either pay for the product at $95 per user per month, or they pay you to build the products in PowerApps. They can choose, right? They either pay you services or they pay for a license. As a partner, you're probably going to want the services revenue, but that's not the right thing to do for the customer. So just remember that. The next one is, well, okay, Dynamics first party apps. There's no application is exactly what we need, but every business needs to customize their apps to the best of their ability. And that makes sense. So it's probably an extension of Office or Dynamics with PowerApps, right? So you're probably going to use like the sales application and then build onto that using those little digital bricks I was telling you about. And then finally, there's no app for that. That's a Power Platform discussion. That's where you're typically going to connect Power Platform up, right? You probably don't need Dynamics. Now, you think that that's the cheaper version. It probably isn't, right? Because customers are going to end up paying you money to build things. So that's pretty key, okay? So remember, Dynamics 365 is pre-built first-party app functionality. PowerApps is just the bricks to build those solutions. So if you know how to put the bricks together, go right ahead and do it, okay? And that's the important part. So when I actually look at Dynamics 365 and when I look at how to create IP, okay, it's actually quite simple. There are 3 ways to do it, right? 3 ways. So the first way is to extend Dynamics 365 functionality with Power Platform. The second way is to build next to Dynamics 365. And the third way is to connect to Dynamics 365. So I've got a couple of examples here, and I'm hoping that they'll resonate. But when I look at extend, this is typically what it looks like. So if you've got data, right, it's, you know, if they've got Dynamics, they'll be using one of the applications within Dynamics 365 customer engagement. It's all built on top of the Common Data Service, right? That's really key. Your solution could get plugged on top of that. So you could build out, let me give you an example. I built out claims management for insurers directly on top of the Dynamics 365 stack. So you built out claims management and customer service, which was super easy, right? I built out marketing resource management, MRM, directly against marketing. Also really easy. I didn't have to do many changes, but here's the thing. you are reliant on us at Microsoft to make sure that this product stays in shape, which we do, and we spend a lot of time doing it. But if we decide to deprecate something and your solution requires that piece, you've got to change your solution. You also have to build within our digital guide rails, so you can't misbehave yourself, and you've got to make sure that you abide by best practice. So that's the first one. So you're extending the first-party application layer. The second one is building next to it. So the facilities management example I gave you is pretty important here, where I want to build out an FM solution. It doesn't really require any Dynamics 365 solutions, but what I can do is functionally link them together. I didn't say data integration. Remember, the data is already in the common data service. I can build whatever I want. See, the common data service is that big green Lego board, and the apps is you just snapping stuff onto the top. And you can remove it if you need to, as long as the data integrity stays. So things like first notification of loss, higher education, really great verticals. Really great vertical for this, where you don't necessarily need Dynamics, but you do need to have that structured layer in the Power Platform. Also, another great example of this is like fleet and logistics. So Dynamics has no entity structure called a driver or a vehicle. So I can build that entity structure and I can just snap it onto the first party apps, right? And then the last one is effectively around what we call Connect. Now, DocuSign is a good example of this. DocuSign, all the magic in DocuSign happens up in their cloud, right? So whatever they built, whatever cogs they have ticking in the background, that all works there. But you can either build a custom connector, okay? Or you can potentially write some code and embed a button or I don't know, iframe DocuSign directly into the Dynamics stack, okay? But effectively, you can leverage elements of the Power Platform to do that. So a good example is the custom connector. Another good example is using flows to generate business process automation. Also using Canvas apps to connect directly to the third party. So you don't, and then embed those directly into a model-driven app. So that's really where this comes in. And the Connect piece we see a lot with, data-heavy organizations, right? So we've worked with a company called Inside View, and what they'd done before was they'd actually built out a data enrichment solution. So whatever data you had in the common data service, you pressed the button, and this went and looked at any public-facing data and actually enriched your solution, right? Obviously, GDPR compliance, making sure that they understand that, but that's really key. So if I take a look at a real-life scenario, right, I'm going to give you something that's actually happened to me and how to position Power Platform and how to position Dynamics. So I did some work in local governments, believe it or not. It's been quite fun. And the first thing they said to me was, they said, we have these 3 processes we need you to help us with. So I was like, yeah, that sounds pretty cool. I can help you with those 3 processes. Where's your data? Question number 1, I'll ask every single customer that I'm talking to. I don't let them get as far as defining a process for me. I want to know where your data is. That's the first thing. So they'll say to me, oh, I've got data in Access, I've got data in Excel. We've all discovered Excel is a pretty shit place to put data. Ask the NHS, right? And also, I've got data in a random SaaS solution. No problem. Give me that data. I'm going to chuck it into the common data service. So using data flows, using import tools, using integration, whatever you'd like, you can snap that data into the CDS. And what you can then do is build out your application layer. So initially, I built out a bunch of Canvas apps. And the Canvas apps are really cool. For those of you that don't know what a Canvas app, it's an app that looks like PowerPoint and Excel had a love child. And I built that app and I basically connected up all to that data using the common data service data connector. And I gave it to everyone. And they ran around taking photos of potholes and reporting antisocial behavior and doing health inspections, and everyone was happy. And then we put Flow in. And Power Automate Flow is really great for like alerting people and moving data if I really needed to. I want to make something very clear here, and I'm probably going to say something that's going to offend someone. So for those of you that are easily offended, block your ears. Flow is not an integration tool. It's not. Flow is an interfacing tool. Integration implies data transmogrification or transformation, okay? You're not going to do that in Flow. If you're doing that in Flow, you're gonna have some problems. The more logic you bake into Flow, the more technical debt you create. Go and use something like Data Factory if you want to do data integration, even Logic Apps. But please, for the love of God, Flow is not an integration tool, right? The amount of times I walk into organizations, they're complaining about the performance of Flow. And I say, crack open that Flow. I want to see what you've done. And they've got fetch XML coming through their ears. I'm like, dude, you're doing the wrong thing. You're doing the wrong thing, right? So the next one, one of my personal favorites actually is Power BI within the platform. So we snap that on. Power BI is literally the quickest way to gain business productivity. You want to do a business value assessment, do it with Power BI. Yeah, you will find so many holes in people's data and things that you can fix. So we had all this stuff working, and then actually it got to the point where the organization said to me, you know what, dude, we're getting to the point now where we're going to start needing to process this data. We're going to need to process it properly. So you know what we did? We were leveraging tools in Microsoft 365, obviously, so Azure, the security components in Microsoft 365. But then we put on model-driven apps. Model-driven apps are effectively Dynamics, right? But they don't look like Dynamics. They don't taste like Dynamics. But sorry, they look like Dynamics. They taste like Dynamics. But they ain't Dynamics, right? It's just the kind of democratized functionality from Dynamics 365 customer engagement. Built out loads of model-driven apps, and I'm going to show you the difference between the two. And then finally, we use portals. Model-driven apps and portals will not work on any other data storage facility other than the common data service. Common data service, you've got model-driven apps. No common data service, you ain't got model-driven apps. They rely on the data model within the common data service. So whatever model you build, you can surface that up in a usable way using model apps and portals. Then finally, we did loads of stuff with Azure, right? So we had lots of integration happening, which was really cool. Now, where it got really interesting was that they said to me, you know what, Chris, this is really working well. You know what we want to do? We want to start using omnichannel. So what we want to do is we want to connect this out to our call center. And I said, you know what? We've already got a pre-built solution in Dynamics 365 customer service that we can use to surface up into your call center. And they were like, oh, that's cool. I'm like, well, yeah, we don't really have to do any work. We just have to plug them together, snap those little bricks together. And that's exactly what we did. They also said to me, how do we get people to go and fix potholes? And I said, you know what, dude, we've also got a solution called field services. It's the same platform. You're just turning on apps, right? You turn on the blue apps, you got to pay more money. It's super simple. You don't turn on the blue apps, you can try and build them using this layer here. But yeah, you're not gonna get super far. I mean, you're gonna be writing a lot of code for a long time, right? So effectively, these pieces over here are what make up the blue apps. We've just given you pre-built functionality. We've given you a way to integrate to your telephony system. We've given you a way to manage telephone calls through different channels. We've given you a way to schedule people based on skills. We've done all of that for you, right? We've given you a way to manage marketing journeys and do proper lead management. We've given you a way to do proper product management and sales pipeline management. If you want to build it, you can try, but I can pretty much guarantee you will not get very close to achieving what we've achieved in the blue layer. And the reason for that is because this product has been around for a damn long time. All we did was we just democratized the common data service directly out of Dynamics. So what we used to call Dynamics, it wasn't CRM, it was XRM, which meant any kind of relationship, not just customer relationship. And that's where this bad boy comes in. So what I'm going to do, right, is instead of talking more crap to you, I'm going to tell you about a little demo story. Now, I know this is a finance group, and finance people love coffee. I hate coffee, right? I'm just going to tell you. But because we're coming up to Halloween, I thought, you know what? I'm going to pick the most pretentious coffee I can find and just ignore that real quick. So we're going to use this based on soy pumpkin lattes, right? Soy spiced pumpkin latte. I genuinely think that is literally the most pretentious sounding coffee I've ever heard in my life, right? If coffee was a snob, like that coffee would be a snob, right? So what I did was I said, okay, so this is pretty easy. First of all, I want to be able to track trade show leads. So the example of this is that let's use Julia as my guinea pig here. Sorry, my pioneer. Let me rephrase that. So Julia being my it does sound like a horrible coffee. Julia being my pioneer, what Jules does is she runs around. So she works for Fuller Beans, and she runs around at trade shows giving people samples of soy spiced pumpkin lattes. Yeah, and what they're going to do is they're hopefully going to serve these up at their coffee bars. But now here's the thing. Because Jules doesn't really manage her leads very well, everyone gives Jules business cards, and because Jules goes out to the pub afterwards and loses them every time, that lead's gone. So we need a way to track those. So we built a solution. Now, obviously, here's the thing. I've got my data in the common data service. My sales and marketing app is built on top of that. And then I can just leverage areas of the platform and snap them onto the side, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually go into my demo environment, and this is going to have to be the world's fastest demo. But for those of you that are comfortable, I'm going to do most of this demo from directly within Teams, right? Just to show you that we're all falling in line. So this is my solution. So first things first, right? I'm going to go to my Fuller Beans web page, And you can see that this is my information. I've got a lead generation form here, so external people can capture leads. I'm not very good at designing stuff, but I just want to tell you that it's not because I have no talent, I just have no taste. So yeah, basically this is my little web form, right? Now here's the thing. If I go into my Dynamics 365 marketing app, so the first thing I'm doing is I'm going in here, right? I'm going to go open up my Dynamics 365 marketing app, and I'm going to tell you that let's go and check out my list of leads. So now this is a model-driven application, okay? If I click on my leads, awesome, right? Here's a bunch of leads that have been captured. So you can see loads of people captured the stuff. So Jules probably captured a bunch of leads in here. Now, what's pretty cool is I've done no configuration to this. This is out the box, right? So if you take a look, there's a business process flow to help me manage my lead through the progression. This is Power Automate, right? So Power Automate, this is Power Automate business process flows inside Dynamics. Now, what's pretty sick, right, is I can manage this lead through to completion pretty easily, right? Now, this is also a highly relational data structure. All of these entities on the left are integrated to one another in some way, shape, or form, which is pretty cool, right? So this is my list of leads. That's pretty awesome. But what I want to really do is I want to start thinking about, I've done my marketing piece. I want to talk a little bit about sales. So I can go to my sales app. So all I'm doing is I'm going in here. It's the same platform, folks. It's just I'm moving between different apps. The sales app has got different functionality, right? So those leads that you saw, I'm just looking at the same entity. Here's the leads. Yeah, pretty awesome, right? So I'm just looking at the data through a different application lens. But you can see in this app over here, I've got loads of other stuff, right? I've got invoices, quotes, orders. I've got things called marketing lists, etc., etc. So this is out the box. I have done no config here. I just turned the app on and it gave me all of this. That's pretty cool, right? So these are Dynamics 365 applications that are out the box. If I wanted to, I could quite easily go back to my marketing app. How to extend the dashboards? Well, that's awesome. I can see that people are talking about Power BI. Fantastic. I've embedded my Power BI directly in my model app. Pie charts. Rishi, I've got to tell you, bro, friends don't let friends make pie charts. I've got a load of pie charts in here. You're going to judge me. But check this out, right? So this is my Power BI report. I've just embedded it. Pretty awesome. Now, as you can see, I'm going to go check out my soy pumpkin lattes. Let's check it out. Oh, I've got loads of leads for this. So obviously some people like my soy pumpkin lattes. Why, I don't know. Karen, drilling down, let's have a look. Let's go and check out where people are taking my soy pumpkin lattes. Oh, there's crap loads of them in Europe. Don't know what it is, but Europeans seem to like soy pumpkin lattes. Americans, not so much. All right, cool. Let's keep them going. Let's go check it out. Right, so you can see I've got my total budget slide. That's my sales budget. Here's my opportunity value. I've got lots of leads, but have I sold any soy pumpkin lattes? Oh, whoa. Jules, dude, I don't know what you're doing, man, but you got to sort out our soy spice pumpkin latte number because this is not looking good. You've got lots of leads, but nobody's buying it. So actually, maybe the samples need to be checked out, right? And then again, you can use things like key influencers, etc., etc. The most important chart, you can see that these fish are hungry for data. There we go. But you can actually see, based on all that information, I can plug directly into Dynamics 365 through Power BI. Pretty epic as well. So this is effectively the first party app. Now, what I'm going to show you is that over here, I've just shown you these bits. I haven't gone into the common data service. If I go directly into PowerApps, yeah, and I go to my environments, I'll go to my partner technical architect environments, and I take a look at my data. This is effectively where all the data is stored. All right, so all the data is stored in the common data service. This is the common data service. Yeah, and by the way, that was all in Teams. That entire demo I did there was all in Teams. So just to let you know, everything was embedded in Teams. Yeah. So, and Teams is the new desktop. So now here's the thing. Check this out. I can go and edit and add fields. So if I take a look at my account entity, I click on that, I'll have information about accounts. I'll have attributes and fields that define what an account looks like. I could have animal, I could have number of legs, color, cold blood, warm blood, whatever I'd like. I can make entities that store that information. In SQL, you'll call them tables. In SharePoint, you'll call them lists. But this is very, very secure. The data storage in here, if I create a new field and I decide that this field is going to be a text field, it'll store that in SQL Elastic Pools. If I decide that this is going to be an image field, it'll store that in Azure Blob. It's pretty freaking awesome, right? So it does that all automatically for you. If I want to link up entities, so if I want to have, say as an example, account will have lots of contacts. I can create relationships. This is typically quite difficult to manage in SQL, whereas I can do this out the box without even going into anything into anything technical. Something else pretty cool, if I want to build an application, now this is the really important thing. If I want to build an app, now if you take a look here, here's all the Dynamics apps that I've got. I've got loads. There are loads and loads. If I want to build a Canvas app and connect to that data, I use the Common Data Service Data Connector. This connector receives the most investment from Microsoft out of all of the connectors, right? But I have to have premium license to do that if I want to use the CDS. So check this out. But because I'm using Dynamics, I don't need that. So I can let's create a leads management app. So I can go ahead, select leads, click create it, and go get a tequila or whatever, basically whatever people do during COVID, especially at this time of night. I can go ahead and just connect. But again, all I'm doing is just leveraging core functionality in the platform. So there we go. Remember that list of leads I showed you? Kapow, done. I don't need to do anything. It's built the app for me. If I want to go ahead and add in, I don't know, a business card scanner for artificial intelligence, I can quite easily go in, chuck in the AI builder. So when Jules captures her leads, here's my business card scanner, and all I need to do is link that up to the fields, BC1. I'm nearly done, folks. So if I really want to, I can just say, okay, well, company name, I'm going to make that, I'm going to unlock this field over here, remove that and say BC1 dot, did I call it BC1? BCV1, wow, classic demo error there, dot company name. So what'll happen is when I run this and test it out, and I go ahead and scan a business card, I'm just going to pick a random one. Let's pick this one. Cool. I'll go ahead and scan a business card. It'll automatically just track that information directly into the company name field. There we go, done deal. And I can save that directly to my Common Data Service. I don't need to do any other work here. So when you're building out your apps, the most important thing to understand is this is the thing that needs all your loving. The app is just a byproduct of that. Because marketing, sales, Canvas apps, whatever, I don't care. You can build anything. As long as you're using the same Common Data Service environment, then you're golden, right? And that's the thing around the first-party app layer, is that first-party apps provide you with functionality that you don't need, that you wouldn't have to build out, or it would normally take you long to build out. If I open up one of my model-driven apps, and here's something that's going to blow your mind, let's pop open an environment. This has no dynamics in it, this environment I'm about to open. So no dynamics at all, right? If I go to my apps and I open up a model-driven app, let's go here. And I'm just going to pick a small one. Let's pick prospect management. This is a model-driven app. Okay, I want you to look at this. This is dynamics. Okay. Oh, that's a great example. Let me go complain. Sorry. Remember, this is dynamics, a first-party application. This is a model-driven app. It's just got one entity in it. And I have built a Lego app. Yeah. This has just got one entity in it. Right. So look at that. It's the exact same thing. We've just pre-built stuff in Dynamics for you. You don't need to build out pipeline management and sales, etc., etc. But you can if you try if you want. It'll just take you hours and hours. Model-driven apps are typically mid-office, very good at security, very good at process, very good at being robust. This thing is basically bulletproof, right? It's an amazing solution. It is way stronger than a Canvas app, right? Canvas apps, you're going to be writing formulas and things, but this is really key to understand. Model-driven apps, if you want a proper line of business solution, you do it in model-driven. You don't do it in Canvas, okay? Canvas app fills those digital gaps. Model apps are really great for line of business. However, you wouldn't put a model-driven app in as like a point-and-shoot app for somebody to, snag pictures of potholes. You could, but it wouldn't get the adoption. So just remember, Dynamics 365, the first-party apps, are model-driven apps. You can extend them in the same way. You can add fields in the same way. But the most key thing here is that it's all built on top of the Common Data Service. Please, folks, if I give you any actions off the back of this, it would be to learn a little bit more around the Common Data Service. So effectively, all I've shown you, number one, is being able to track and manage data inside the Common Data Service through sales and through marketing. And there's also the ability to manage business process flow. Canvas apps are a byproduct of the data. If you want to do something small, go right ahead. There's an insanely awesome connector within Power BI to connect up to the Common Data Service and manage your information. It doesn't matter where the data is, right? You can connect to it. And then finally, you've got your kind of outlying areas with Flow and AI Builder that do the automations as well as promote usability. So in a very, very, very quick demo session, that's what I've managed to go through. So what I want to do is I want to open up the floor. I know there are some questions, but anyone want to ask anything, I'm more than happy. And like I said, if you take anything away, common data service is the big green Lego board. The apps are just things that snap onto it. Okay, and that's really, really key. Cool. Right. So with that, I'm going to pop into the chat again. I was trying to bake stuff in, but I got very excited because I wanted to get to the demo. So
we were talking about tequila and coffee, and yeah, you've got to start with all sorts of things here. So I'm not sure how much of that's relevant to this.
I could do a tequila, yeah.
I've got a question actually, just kind of again trying to bring this back to the finance function, I guess, right?
Yeah.
So I get that, you know, if your organization, you work for an organization that's got dynamics, you know, whatever flavor that might be, there's lots of opportunity to kind of use some of that data and master data management and use some of that master data in reporting and modeling and all the things you do in the finance function. I guess if you're thinking that you don't have that, so then you're coming from a finance function, your job is to do things like reporting, modeling, planning, forecasting, those kind of things. You know, your world's been Excel for the last couple of decades.
Yeah.
And then, you know, you're looking at how you could use more modern tools and share and collaborate and do things with data at scale. You know, Excel's falling over the creeks, so you look at Power BI and you build some models in there, and you start to get away from that you know, the Excel hell with lots of different versions. But you know, equally you have problems with Power BI because everyone's producing Power BI reports and doing data models. So you start to move to a more governed structure with data flows and shared data sets and things like that, and you know, center of excellence teams and all of those good things. And then I guess you need to kind of also bake in workflows and think about, you know, data entry. So you could start to look at PowerApps and Power Automate. But I don't know really where you go from there on that journey, right? Because if you had Dynamics, yes, you can start to get your data flows coming out of CDS and Dynamics. But if you don't, where do you really go to start to integrate Power Platform, coming at it from a data side? I can see it from going to Azure. I see less of a connection about how you go from Power BI and you know, the core kind of Power Platform into kind of the other space.
So wait, what's the actual question? Like, where would you start using Power Platform in a more data focused world?
Yeah, in a data focused world and kind of thinking about, you know, the finance function with kind of the Excel world, and where would you go and start getting into Power Platform and Dynamics and CDS and all of that from there?
Oh man, I mean, there's loads and loads. I'm just trying to think.
That is a hard question.
You can't answer that in in a simple way. It really just depends. So I have this rule, right? And I've been doing a lot of stuff with the chap called Paul in Oz. And the rule is it's around the use case. So what I typically do is I focus on the use case first, and I say, okay, like, what is the actual thing you're trying to achieve? And a lot of the time somebody's going to say, I'm just trying to move out from forecasting reports in Excel to a more structured system. Cool. D365 for sales has got forecasting in it, so you can use the functionality of the sales module. But if that's the only thing you're going to solve, the business value is not necessarily achieved because Dynamics is $95 per user per month, which goes back to my previous discussion on this piece here. And this is why I wanted to show you this slide, is around the scale of the app. The scale of the app you're building is really important because the licensing can often be quite tough. So if you look at this thing here, this slide there, everything comes back to this slide. If you're solving one use case, like forecasting, are you willing to pay X amount of money? If you're trying to look at lead management, forecasting, you know, buying propensity, all that type of thing, and you're starting to look at other areas, oh hell, then Dynamics is the absolute answer. But if not, you can build a custom forecasting module in the common data service, bring data in from your multiple data sets, use the CDS as your golden data layer, and then report off the back of that. So yeah, I would say use case first, and then figure out where the platform snaps in. And the other answer I'd give you is that you can do anything with enough time, money, and motivation, my friend. It just really depends on how much of it you're willing to spend. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, I think it does. So if your use case is you want to drive more consistency and conformity in your data, because you've got lots of different Power BI data sets and you've started moving towards data flows to drive some of that, where's the next step?
I would say CDS, definitely. I would say start looking at a data model within the common data service. So take a look at the current data you've got. I would say model that in CDS. Use that as your core data store and go from there. I mean, you can build anything on top of that, really. And actually, one of the things we've discovered is our Azure partners in Microsoft, they don't care about Canvas apps. Like a lot of them don't give a damn about them. I mean, that's not something, but what they do care about is the movement of data. Right. And the Common Data Service is a very good place to put data because it's got all those layers of security.
Got you. How do you go from how do you build out a CDS? Where's the best place to start with it?
So effectively, what I would do is I would start looking at the data storage facilities that you've got. So the idea would be, if you're depending on where your data is stored, a lot of the time it's Excel Armageddon. So as you said, there's loads of Excel. So first of all, design a data model, figure out how the data relates to the other pieces of the data. As an example, you'll have forecasting related to opportunity, related to accounts, right? And then you create that model in the Common Data Service. So I draw it first and then I start building it. And technically, it's actually not very hard to do, right? So inside the Power Platform, what I'm looking at here is the Common Data Service. This is the Common Data Service. If I go a new data entity, and we'll call this forecast. So over there, you can go ahead and add in all sorts of other bits and pieces. You can add in your security layer over here. You can do all sorts of fantastic things. And effectively, I've created a table. You can then add fields. So I can say, well, I'm going to add a field called description. I'm just adding like really random stuff. I'm also going to add a field in called amounts. Right, so pretty straightforward. Go there. You can pick a field type. So this one is going to be a whole number or a currency actually, because you're going to be managing actual cash. Here we go. Done. Right, and then what I want to do is I'm going to have an amount, right? So this is my first block of data that I'm going to be storing. So this is going to be my forecast. The second one might be, I want to be able to relate my forecast to the account entity. And you do that through relationship management. So you have to draw these things before you build them. But once you've built it, the management of data is really straightforward after that. But you have to understand data modeling. And that is a real skill, right? Dynamics 365 customer engagement people, we've been brought up with data modeling. So for us, it's like, okay, well, we know how to do it. But if you've never done it before, it is something you have to learn. You have to actually physically learn the skill, which gets quite interesting. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So you could do this with a normal Office license. You could start building it this way, or you need
to have a Dynamics license or a premium connector. Premium connector license. Okay. Yeah. You can do so. There is a light version of this called Project Oakdale, which I alluded to earlier. It is not meant to be the same heavy lifting as the Common Data Service, right? But you can do some pretty good stuff, and that is included in your Office license. But remember, and this is something that I really want to drive home, in no world can this solution cost the same as this solution. Okay, and that's the point, right? Your mission critical, highly secure, robust solutions are mostly going to be built in CDS and SQL. Your simple business productivity cases are going to be built in Sharepoint and Oakdale. And that's the right thing to do. So it all goes back to data, my friends. Every discussion you have with the customer, it will always go back to data and connectivity every time, without fail.
Got it. Thanks.
Yeah. Right solution for the right problem, right? And that's the other thing I just wanted to tell you before I hang up is that here, or team productivity, it doesn't make sense to use CDS a lot of the time because it is expensive for like just one app. But if you're ripping out a whole platform, it's cheap as chips. Do you know that there are organizations out there that have spent millions and millions and millions on solutions? So £7.50 per user per month doesn't sound too bad.
Yeah. So how do you get started with Project Oakdale for Teams?
Awesome. Yeah, great question. Yeah, so it's basically, it'll be turned on already. So if I go over here and I look at Teams and you go ahead and you just search for just look for PowerApps, Kapow, right? So you open it up and yeah, there you go. So the PowerApp functionality, oh, I'm an idiot, I closed it. Just open it up again. Come on, wake up. Okay, let's try that all again. I really don't know why it's decided to not do that. Oh, I don't know what's going on with Teams. But yeah, just search for PowerApps. You've also got Power Virtual Agents embedded in Teams now for free. But yeah, you do need to know the limitations, right? So don't assume that PowerApps in Teams with Oakdale is going to solve your worldly problems. It might compound them depending on how much respect you have for your data. Cool. There you go. So yeah, just create an app. Here's some of the apps are built, and then if you go into your team, your actual team site, you can see the tables. So here, if I click on this contacts table over there, looks like CDS, smells like CDS, tastes like CDS, just doesn't have all of the same structures. Here we go. So this is Oakdale. This is a full license common data service. So full license common data service, Oakdale. And there are actual substantial differences in that you can't store more than 1 million records in Oakdale. You can't have an Oakdale environment bigger than 2 gigs. You don't have the same security structure. So if you've got like really sensitive data that you're storing, and you need to manage it down to like field level data obfuscation or role level security and things like that, you're not going to be able to do that. You've got to do that in common data service. But like I said, right solution for the right problem. You know.
Can you expose that data in Power BI via data flow or something? And if it's in Excel?
Yeah, apparently you can. I haven't tried that yet, but in what I've read, you can do it. So that, but my theory is that anything to do with data must have a connector and must be connected to the rest of the platform. So yeah, that's the key thing.
Great, thanks, Chris. That was a really good answer. Yeah, it's something that's I've been looking at all this dynamic stuff and obviously broader Power Platform for a while, but just thinking about how it actually comes together from a data-driven world and from a kind of looking at a function like finance and thinking about how it actually applies to grow out and scale out those solutions, I think is really interesting.
Yeah, you just got to remember, hey, like all this is it's digital Lego bricks. That's how I see it. And like the Dynamics is already the pre-built set that's given to you, or you can just use the bricks and build it yourself. But it all goes back to that original point I made right in the very beginning. That's basically, often it can look quite daunting to try and understand how all this stuff fits together. But actually, it's not always that, right? It doesn't always have to work like that. It can be siloed and compartmentalized. You just got to allow your brain to understand how.
Great. That's Chris. Do we have any other questions for Chris?
Could I just ask one question?
Yeah, Shane. Yep. Hey.
Yeah, just one quick one. Like at the start, as an example, I'd mentioned I used Dynamics, and I wasn't aware there was so many different types of Dynamics. So as a general, like just say a standard finance user, how many different types of Dynamics would they use typically?
What's the use case?
Well, I'm just thinking just your standard user in finance using Dynamics.
Yeah, so reporting, planning, forecasting, that kind of stuff.
It depends. I mean, that's a really difficult question. Yeah, it depends on the size of the issue. It depends on the size of the platform. I mean, it's really down to like
Essential and finance are the two big ones for financial users, like accountants.
Yeah.
But
we see it a lot in sales.
Yeah, I was about to say, but
honestly, Shane, it's down to the use case, man. I mean, like financial reporting, it's going to be a consolidation of data, right? So using Power BI. If you're doing, I don't know, forecasting using sales, depending, or the ERP systems like Business Central or the finance, but the top one in green. If you're using, I don't know, it's just you could use every.
Tell us what it looks like. We can tell you which one it is if you want to. Or we need to see a quick screen share, and we'd be like, oh yeah, you're using this.
Okay.
But that's not to say that you can't enhance it with all the wonderful Power Platform tools.
And you could build a financial solution in Power Platform. I mean, you could build it from scratch.
Whoa.
Yeah, it's not a good idea, but you can. And I've seen people building in sub ledgers.
Maybe what I was going to say, something like now that we can put PowerApps and Power BI, there'd be some cool stuff to do with that. Yeah. Oh, there's a trick. Dev guest is Power Automate Desktop. Yes.
Yes.
So the question is, do we require a separate license for Power Automate Desktop, and what type of Power Automate license is included with E3?
Flow, basic personal productivity connectors and Flow with E3. And that is already a dangerous question, because what we find people doing is not wanting to pay for the actual Power Automate licensing using the premium connectors, and then they try and build it using the personal productivity stuff, and then stuff breaks pretty quickly. So yeah, just please be aware of that.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I tend to use Logic Apps more than Power Automate, because it doesn't have quite the same connotation with premium licenses. I know there is some premium environment in the Logic Apps, but it's not the same restrictions. And it doesn't run under a user; it runs under an Azure subscription, which to me just makes sense for workflow, and especially as Chris was saying, data integration tasks, which is obviously what I would tend to use it for.
Yeah, Logic Apps is super for that. Yeah, it depends what you're wanting to do. I mean, if it's an E3 license, you should be doing very personal productivity related things, so like moving an email, sending a document. Nothing really bigger than that on the personal productivity stuff. Maybe moving data between a list or two here and there, but not more than that, in my opinion.
Yeah, I don't do any personal productivity. Yeah, so go on, Julie. So who's that?
Fernando.
Oh, hey, Fernando. Yep.
Chris, what YouTube video do you recommend, a channel that expose how to build model-driven apps, for example, step by step, to follow and see the recordings a little bit in a space?
There is some stuff on MS Learn. I've been threatening to put that exact type of thing together for a while now. So like maybe this is the kick in the butt I need to do it.
Sure.
There are some things. I'll grab some links for you guys and fire them over. There are some really good things out there, but here's the thing. If you've built a Canvas app before, you're not going to like the model-driven app experience.
It takes a little bit. You'll get there.
Yeah.
It does. I have to admit, it took me a good 2 or 3 making model-driven apps to like model-driven apps from Canvas apps.
Yeah.
But now I love them.
The thing is that you don't have the same design freedom as you do in a Canvas app. So like you can't drag the icon and make a cornflower blue and put it in the left. Like you're kind of using the framework that we give you. But that being said, it is way easy when you get it down. Like I can build you a model-driven app in minutes. It takes me much longer to build Canvas apps. So Fernando, I'll grab those links and fire them over to you, man. Are you on LinkedIn or Twitter or anything?
Yes, we are connected. I can send you.
I thought I recognized your name.
Yeah, and send them over to me, Chris, and I'll put them on the Power Platform Finance site and on the YouTube video link in the description, stuff like that as well.
Yeah, awesome, man. Awesome. Yeah, I'll find some good ones, or I might make one. All depending.
Right.
Cool.
Cool. I'm conscious we're a little bit over with time. So any other questions before we let Chris get back to his evening?
Oh, I've still got another community call after this. Yeah.
Cool. Look forward to having you back. Maybe we'll have you back again, Chris, for another session as we start to do more stuff with Power Platform Finance. And if you have any ideas on what we can cover here as well, let us know.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. Thank you again. I really do appreciate the time, everyone. I know it's late.
Cool. Thanks, everyone. We'll catch up soon at the next event with Bob Tuffy. So see you in 2 weeks for those who can make it.
Yeah, see you all later.
Thanks, guys.
Ciao.
Cheers.
Bye.